LGR's Talking Property is brought to you in association with the Kings Group, your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Highly knowledgeable guest this evening. Our first guest this evening is Jonathan Miller. Jonathan joined Mercer Coulson Miller Financial Planning in 2008, following a successful career in a number of large financial services companies. Since 2008, Jonathan has grown a wide client base, specialising in pensions, planning, investment and tax planning. His ability to make complex financial matters seem more straightforward means Jonathan's clients can make informed, tax-efficient decisions with their money at critical times in their lives. Jonathan lives in Wiltshire. Thank you for coming this evening, with his wife and 2 sons, enjoys chess and taking part. So, Jonathan, not only do you help keep people's finances fit for purpose and healthy, you are a fitness fanatic yourself too.
Well, I try my best. Yep.
Well, thank you for being with us this evening and spending time. Our second guest is Karl Giles. Karl's head of business at St James's Place Wealth Management. Karl joined St James's Place 6 years ago, following many years in banking. Although she has worked within most of the sectors in the financial world, the majority of her career has been spent working within the investment sector. Karl has long been a firm believer in the financial education of all children, hence her joining the show this evening. Apparently Karl has 2 guilty pleasures. 2. Cruisers and cream eggs. Well, you might receive a cream egg tonight in between the ad breaks, Karl, but cruisers won't be happening on Talking Property's expenditure budget, I'm afraid. Sorry about that.
Shame about that, but I'd like a cream egg.
Well, lovely to have you with us anyway.
Thank you.
Our third guest this evening is running a touch late and hurtling towards the studio as we speak. She is Sam Tesh from the Open Work Foundation. Sam has headed up this for the last 9 years, and the purpose of the foundation is to improve the quality of life for disadvantaged people through generous and valuable donations of time and money from Open Works partners, advisors and staff. She's a keen advocate for the foundation and has taken part in multiple fundraising events. More recently, Sam took to the skies wing walking to raise awareness of the foundation. And in her own words, what I love about the job is it never stops when you leave the office. To be able to do this makes this one of the best jobs in the world. Well, hopefully Sam will reach dizzy heights tonight. Sam could have done with that plane to ensure she arrived a little earlier, really, couldn't she? Not that I think the wing walking would be too good in the rainy weather out there. She'll be here to contribute with us very soon. Completing the panel tonight was going to be Caroline Russell from the London Assembly. She is the leader of the Green Party, chairs the Environment Committee and is a member of the Transport Committee. Unfortunately, Caroline has come down with something and she's not able to join us this evening, nor one of her colleagues at short notice, I'm afraid. We wish her a speedy recovery. We want to hear from you, the listeners, this evening with your questions and comments. You can message us by text on 0737 6611 or contact us via Twitter at LGR Talk Property. That's messages or contact us via Twitter at LGR Talk Property. Now, we also invited Anne Milton, the Apprenticeship and Skills Minister, to join us and give us the government strategy and thinking on this subject, but sadly the Minister had a prior commitment. That's probably the B word, which we won't mention this evening. We'll try not to. And no one else from the Department of Education was available. She did, however, send us a statement. So that seems to me like a really good place to start the programme tonight. Anne said, getting the money together for a deposit on somewhere to rent or buy can be a big and costly challenge, so it's really important that young people know how to budget and manage their personal finances. To support them, we have made financial literacy compulsory in maintained schools as part of citizenship lessons for 11 to 16-year-olds. We've also strengthened the maths curriculum to equip pupils with their knowledge and skills they need to make important financial decisions later in life. Pupils may also be taught about how financial decisions can affect their lives as part of personal, social, health and economic education. That's PSHE in primary and secondary schools. Quite a big statement there, Jonathan. Are we actually seeing what the Minister's telling us happening in our schools?
Well, from the ones that I see, in parts. So, the schools that I go to, I don't see it that often. I think they're doing the very best they can. I think teachers are, as I said, rushed off their feet. But I don't see a huge amount of that.
Is there any structure in place though? Is there of the schools you've been into, is it the same sort of curriculum that's being taught? Is there a curriculum?
Well, I do know they've got citizenship days, and maybe that's where it's part of it. And so when I say this is what I want to come and talk about, they're very happy for me to come and do that. But I don't know whether it's part of the structure or not. Right. And I don't know whether it was by luck that I'm there, or I just happened to be, the person talking to them about that.
Did the school approach you? Or?
No, I've approached them.
You approached them?
Yeah.
And were you aware that they were supposedly, according to Anne, there's a structure in place through citizenship to teach people financial laws?
Absolutely not. My view was always about trying to educate our youngsters about money, and that was my passion. It wasn't about trying to fulfil a curriculum role at all, so I wasn't aware of it.
If we look at the structure, what form should these lessons take, Carol?
Well, I think before we actually look at the structure, I think we should think about young children initially, which don't form part of the education system. So that starts with parental responsibility when children are very, very young, as to some very simple concepts. I mean, my question would be, do children still have a piggy bank and the things that I had when I was growing up, as to where they start? But as far as the school is concerned, I think the structure has to be young children, primary school. We have to look at ages 10 and 12. Yeah. We then look at 13 to 14 and then 16 to 18 as they go into sixth form. And those need to be structured quite differently.
So sort of four sections?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that if we talk about the topics that should be covered, I think these need to be adapted according to each different age group. So we need to be talking about things like savings.
Well, let's just hold that there. We're going to go to an ad break, and then from there on in, we'll come back and talk about those topics.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Στις δύσκολες στιγμές που ακολουθούν την απώλεια ενός αγαπημένου προσώπου, εμπιστευτείτε το Γραφείο Κηδιών Δημητρίου & English. 30 χρόνια στην καρδιά της παροικίας. Έχουν την εμπειρία και αναλαμβάνουν με συνέπεια και επαγγελματισμό τη διοργάνωση της κηδείας του εκλειπώντος, καθώς και κάθε άλλης αναγκαίας πένθυμης τελετής ή ακόμη και τον επαναπατρισμό του αποβιώσαντος στον τόπο καταγωγής του. Και όλα αυτά σε ασυναγώνιστες τιμές. Και δεν είναι λόγια. Μπορούμε να συναγωνιστούμε οποιαδήποτε προσφορά. Τέλος, σας βοηθούμε στη συμπλήρωση των κατάλληλων εγγράφων και την κάλυψη των εξόδων κηδείας από το DSS. Δημητρίου & English. 30 χρόνια στο πλευρό της παροικίας. 888 99 888.
If you're an EU citizen living in the UK, you will need to apply to the EU settlement scheme. This means that the rights you currently have will be protected after the UK leaves the EU. The scheme is fully open and you have plenty of time to apply. It is free. To find out more and to apply, visit gov.uk/EU settlement scheme. Irish citizens or those with valid indefinite leave don't need to apply.
LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Welcome back, and welcome to Sam, who's joined us now. We were just talking about you wing walking on a plane. I said you needed a plane to get here tonight, yeah?
Yes, but I wouldn't have been wing walking.
Well, thank you. No, it's not good. Thank you for joining us. Carol, I put you on pause for a second.
Oh, don't worry about that. It's absolutely fine. So I was talking about the things that should be included, I think, in financial education for children at different ages and obviously with different complexities. So one of the things would be savings, the needs and the wants of the individual child and the reason for actually wanting to save. Saving into a jar or into a bank account doesn't have any meaning unless you actually know what it's for. Borrowing, mortgages, what's manageable and what's unmanageable debt, and understanding the impact of debt on things like your credit score, which could have an effect for your whole life if you don't get these things sorted out. Budgeting, day-to-day banking, tax, how student loans work, pay slips, all of that kind of thing needs to be educated for children, but depending on the age group, depends how complex that would be.
Different education at different
education. But I also think there needs to be a sequence of workshops or classes for children, so it can't be a one-off. It needs to be something where they're actually taught things.
Let's come back to that in a minute. I just wanted to ask Sam, do children, I'm asking you because I know you've got the work through the foundation, do they actually still use piggy banks? I mean, I don't know if people use that sort of thing as much. I mean, because we're heading for a cashless society.
Absolutely. I think it's probably at your primary school level where they receive small amounts of pocket money and they start to understand what currency is about, and and then normally pick that up within the schools. But beyond that, junior school and beyond, no, I wouldn't have thought so.
No, my children come to me with the money that they've been given on birthdays, Christmases, or they've earned, and said, "Dad, can you put that in my account? Can you put that on my Go Henry or my Barclays account?" So they're online already, they're savvy, but they're not saving in jars.
So that does mean we need a different approach to actually understand, because I think that this is the problem, isn't it? That even if you go and get an Uber these days, you don't physically pay any money, so there's no great value in it. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And what about the structure? Do we think, I mean, there seems to be a very much hit and miss scenario across the country that, if you go to, I don't know, what school is it you've been going into, Jonathan?
I've been to Farringdon and also to Marlborough Sixth Form.
Right, well, obviously the pupils are very lucky to have you going in there, but if you went to another school, St Joseph's in, I don't know, Hackney for argument's sake, not that that's a school, I've just made that up, but if there isn't anybody going in, it might be a biology teacher speaking.
Yeah.
And I've been to a school where in London whereby they didn't have anybody, and they didn't have any of the teachers that were able to teach either, because they didn't really understand it themselves. And I think that we underestimate how much pupils want to learn this, and also how amazing they were when they were given the information.
So the Minister, Anne Milton, said that it's part of the curriculum, but from what you're sort of saying is there doesn't seem to be any structure to it at all from what we can find.
Well, I don't know that there's not a structure, but I'm just saying it's not obvious to me and I haven't seen it. I mean, there may be a structure, and it may be they don't know that we could help them. And
is it loose though? It appears to me to be very loose. It's just teach.
I mean, hats off to the schools that have invited me in, and the teachers have done a fantastic job, and I'm an advocate of those, but they're not, when they say to me, what are you going to talk about, they're not saying, could you include X, Y and Z, could you add this in, could you add that in? It's very much, you're going to talk about finance. Brilliant.
That would strike me there is no curriculum then, Sam.
No, I think that they ask that the schools make provision, but they don't mandate it. So it is down to the teachers and the heads as to whether they want to provide, through the likes of people like Jonathan or experienced teachers, they want to provide that knowledge.
I find that absolutely unbelievable that in today's society, particularly even more, I mean, we're heading for a cashless society. I just find that there's not to have provision that's set down where the education department has actually said this is the process. It wouldn't, I don't think it'd take too much, would it, Jonathan, to put something in place?
I don't think it would take an awful lot. I mean, I think schools and teachers are rushed off their feet. I think they've got a very busy curriculum as it is. I think Ofsted, all the safeguarding, all the mental health, all the stuff that's put on teachers, I do think they've got a hard job to do. But I do think these are really important skills. I'm certain that all the different subjects would be really good for kids going forward, but every one of them is going to have to handle money. Not everyone's going to have to do geography.
Or not handle money.
Or not handle money.
But all of them, that money
they're
sits
all going
in.
to have money or have debt at some stage in their life. They're not all going to have geography. I like geography, by the way.
I think from the research I did, it did say that finance would be included in their personal, social, health and economic education, but it was optional, and it didn't explain the degree that it would happen, and it didn't explain the complexity. And my question is also, I work in the financial sector and I know how complicated it is for us, and we do it as a career. And when clients come in and see us, they're often very successful in their own field, and we would think, well, we wouldn't be successful in your field. It is an expert job, and actually they do need educating. Teachers don't automatically know this stuff.
No, I totally agree. It's not just teachers, it's adults.
It's everybody. And why should they?
I've got a text that's just come in. I'll read you this because that sort of follows up what we're saying. For what it's worth, I'm in complete agreement with you. The banks, I don't know whether that's me, you or everybody else, but I think it's probably all of us. The banks offered me credit cards, overdrafts and all sorts the moment I turned 18. I had no clue and ended up in a world of trouble. Had I known from the outset, i.e. in school, about financial planning, I'd have been a lot more cautious and not frivolous. Obviously an educated person. I'd have saved more and highly likely be on the property ladder now rather than having to live hand to mouth each month. Basic money management should be on the curriculum, and when my children are old enough, I will ensure I sit with both of them and discuss finances properly, if not implemented by then. The only thing I was savvy enough to do at the age of 18 was start paying into a pension.
Brilliant. Well done.
Well done,
absolutely
you.
Well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what we're trying to do is to intervene before people get into debt. It's the intervention before they get into debt. It's exactly the point he's making there, and he's spot on. If people don't know the basics, and I have to say, they throw debt at you, and it's so easy to get into debt, it's so easy to take credit. People want stuff now. It's so important to know the basics of financial planning. And I don't mean pensions and ISAs and tax and all that lot. The basics of, can you budget? Do you know what debt is?
And hearing you read that text out reminds me of something my daughter-in-law said to me.
I think a lot of people probably feel like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you totally. Yeah. And my daughter-in-law said when she went to university, on the first day, a well-known credit card company was there offering anybody that took out the credit card at that particular day would get a free popcorn machine or a bubble gum machine, which everyone thought was great fun, but didn't really think about the implications. Give them 6 months. She didn't actually take it, but given 6 months, everybody was in debt. And then what happened was they were then written to increase their ability to borrow, which consequently everybody does. And if you start that when you're 18 years old, that spirals out of control.
I think that's exploitation, though, isn't it, Sam?
It's difficult. It's opportunity, isn't it?
Is it?
But I think
it might be exploitation.
But I think also, the universities have a responsibility maybe to provide additional support to those young adults as they start on that journey.
But it sounds like there's not anything in place, any guidelines, because from what we can gather just on the curriculum in secondary school, and I don't believe there's anything in primary school, I might be wrong, but if there is, so be it, that it seems very, very loose. So you can see how it's really easy for all institutions to fall into the trap of maybe giving wrong advice. Jonathan?
Well, indeed, but I say to my students, I give them a challenge, and I say, I'll bet you, here's the challenge, in the next 10 minutes, go and earn £100. I bet you can't. In the next 10 minutes, using your phones, go and spend £100. Piece of cake. You can get into debt so easily. And that's the challenge for them.
And of course, debt leads to mental issues and mental health issues or whatever, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I saw an experience. It was of a young man who got one of these delivery roles, and obviously they have to deliver within a certain time frame, and if they don't, they're penalised. And as a result of that, he started having mental health issues because he couldn't hit the deadlines. He then was off work. He had to pay the loan for his motorbike, and it just spiraled. It spiraled. Actually, unfortunately, that person then ended up committing suicide.
Oh God. Yeah.
So it can, if somebody doesn't have the support with the family or the environment around them, then it can lead to really unfortunate circumstances.
And also compound interest on debt, and that's the bit people don't get, is the compound interest on debt just means you start with a small amount, and hey presto, you're in a world of debt.
Totally out of control.
I'm going to come to that in a minute, talk about that sort of thing, because I think there's two types of debt, isn't there? So we want to question that. So one thing that I wanted to say then, so just going back to actually in schools, It seems that what Carol's proposing is that there's sort of 3 or 4 different stages of education, varying degrees, etc. So are we saying that this should be ongoing, or are we saying it should be just a day sitting around? Should it be how should it be reinforced? What do we think should be the correct way? What would you say, Sam?
My view is you start every stage, primary, secondary, through to college and on to university, but it's appropriate, as Carol said, to the age and their interest. So you wouldn't necessarily be talking about debt at a junior school. You'd be talking about simpler things that they would understand, and you have to make it engaging, but it has to be at every level and appropriate to whatever their experiences would be in life at that time.
So,
and you can also ask them, without getting into debt and credit cards, has anyone here borrowed any money from a friend this month? Simple as that.
Right.
Well, if they're borrowing money, it's because they don't have enough.
Yeah.
So what are they spending it on? Have they budgeted, stuff like that?
And I think budgeting is a key one. I think one of the first things that you can teach children is how to budget.
Yeah.
So with very young children, their needs and what they want to buy is completely different, but you can still learn to budget. Everything needs to be within your means, and then it becomes more complex as you get older. I think budgeting and re-budgeting is one of the most important things of any financial planning.
Well, it's like going to the gym. You know, you can't go to the gym once and get fit, can you? You got to keep going again and again and again. And all of us that run a budget, we do our budget monthly or weekly if needs be, but we're constantly doing our budgets. But I would also go on and I would say it's not just education. I think when we employ young people, we should be helping them there. You know, employers who are doing pensions, by the way, through auto-enrolment, should also be sitting down saying, can we talk to you about budgeting? Can we help you with the basics of that? It's a lifelong skill. It doesn't just stop at education.
Well, that's sort of doing what the government normally does, though, is put things back onto employers, isn't it?
No, I'd agree with that, but I'm saying everyone should get involved.
Okay.
Everyone, parents, educators, employers.
Going back to structure, Carol, though. So, are we saying that they should be taught this every day, every week, every month?
I don't know. I don't think there's a need to do it every day, but I certainly think there needs to be a series of workshops or classes that happen at every single stage, and off the top of my head, possibly doing 6 workshops initially. But I think there needs to be, when you're thinking about this, there needs to be far more. We're not just telling children facts or young people facts. There needs to be, can they actually apply those facts, and do they actually understand, and can they articulate them? Because it's very easy for me to stand there and talk about a bank account and what a direct debit is and a standing order is, but can a student put that, actually apply that? Do they actually know what that means? Do they know how you change them and the impact of them in your bank account? Do they even understand the abbreviation on in the bank account?
Well, I don't think they do. This is half the problem, isn't it? This is certainly from employment. Employers are saying that the youth of today is coming to them. When I say youth, and teens, early 20s, mid-20s even, and they just haven't got an understanding of finance in general.
But going back to what Carol was saying, which I think is spot on, maybe a time to do that is the last week of the term, because they're running down, aren't they? At that stage, the kids are tired. It tends to be, I think, I don't know if it's still the same, a little bit easier in that week, but it's just before the break. And what happens in the break? They often get money.
Saturday jobs.
They spend.
Yeah.
There's Christmases, there's birthdays, there's Easter, there's cash around. Maybe that's the little bit they should get just before they go into the break.
Yeah.
Don't know.
I think it needs to be revisited, though. So if you had a series of workshops, they need to be revisited all the time. And it's got to be reinforced. But I think students and young children need to be able to demonstrate that they've actually taken those things on board. And that doesn't mean in a class where they're bored, where somebody's talking at them with a board. It needs to be application. So it could be fun. They could do practical things. They could be given spreadsheets, a budget, work it out. These are all the costs. These are the things. Where could you save money?
We're talking about secondary school here.
Absolutely. But for young children, it's like playing shops, isn't it? It's what we all used to do.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you apply it for each age group, so it becomes normal?
One of the things I was going to say, but just before I did it, I just wanted to ask the listeners out there, it'd be interesting to hear what your views are. I mean, you maybe have got different experiences to what we've got round the table this evening. If you have, we'd like to hear those. Either text us that in or ask us any questions. But one thing I was going to say, in times gone by, the system was much more generated towards saving, i.e. you sort of worked, you were paid, and then you had the physical cash to spend on how and what you wanted to. You could sort of physically feel the money in your hand, and the responsibility that went with spending it wisely. It was a sort of save to spend system is what I would call it. However, in today's society, it seems the young adults of today, in fact all of us really, are being encouraged and driven down a cashless society route. Is spend now and pay for it later. I think this is a real issue and problem, as I say, and I really feel that the government's just not recognised that we're going down this route. It's pushing us down a cashless society. We understand why. I mean, let's talk about even the Spurs stadium that's open this evening, which I'm missing the game for. That's a cashless stadium. No card. You don't earn any money. You can't buy anything. I just think that's really, really dangerous. And even if you take out a contract for a phone, you sign up for 2 years. That's a debt from day one.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I don't think people perceive it as a debt, though.
But it is a debt, isn't it?
I agree. It totally is.
You lose your phone, you still got to pay the contract.
But what you were saying about cashless society, since the introduction of contactless, I think I'm pretty financially savvy. But even I just will go out and spend on a card and not even look at it. Whereas I never used to do that.
I think that's the same for everybody. One of the things that we do with budgeting, I'm talking about for wealthy adults.
But we're not protecting our young adults.
We're not teaching our children.
We don't know about that. I mean, the challenge, again, I say to the sixth formers is, I tell you what, try and do a week just on cash only. And when you run out of cash, go to the cash point and take it out again. And it's much more painful doing it that way, and they're a little bit more tempered in their spending. It's really difficult for them, really difficult. And of course the marketing, machine gearing up to push debt onto them is extremely clever. But we're allowing it.
We are. I did when I was looking at some of the research of this, so I found a report which was commissioned by Easy Money, and it was entitled The Ticking Time Bomb of the Generation Debt. And it did this quote really resonated. It said, what kind of society repeatedly targets its children and young people with temptations to get into increasing amounts of debt? And I thought that is exactly what we're doing, but we're not educating them on how to resist it.
On that thought, we're going to go to another break.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Η Alpha Cleaning Services είναι μια εταιρεία εμπιστοσύνης με πείρα μεγαλύτερη των 10 χρόνων στην παροικία που προσφέρει υπηρεσίες γενικού καθαρισμού σε γραφεία, επιχειρήσεις και σχολεία.
Ειδικεύεται στον καθαρισμό των χαλιών. Υπογράφοντας συμβόλαιο διάρκειας 1 έτους, έχετε εντελώς δωρεάν τον καθαρισμό των χαλιών σας. Παίρνετε έκπτωση 10% αναφέροντας το London Greek Radio.
Η Alpha Cleaning Services καλύπτει επίσης και περιοχές εκτός Λονδίνου καθώς και άλλες πόλεις. Alpha Cleaning Services.
Για πληροφορίες καλέστε Βόρειο Λονδίνο 0203 295 8888 ή 079 1788 6700. Για το Νότιο Λονδίνο καλέστε 0203 295 8889.
Are you ready to party Bouzoukia style? Stamatis Gonidis and his band, together with Eleni Hadjidou, are coming to London for one night only. Saturday, 6th of April at the Royal Regency, Manor Park, London, E12. Do not miss out. Get your tickets now. Contact odeonentertainment.co.uk or call 07576 419391. Make sure you are part of what promises to be a night to remember. Stamatis Gonidis and Eleni Hadjidou. Saturday, 6th of April at the Royal Regency, Manor Park. Doors open at 10 p.m.
Ο Μάρτης και ο Απρίλης αποφάσισαν να γλυκαθούν. Άλειψαν στο φρεσκοσμωμένο ψωμί τους ταχίνι με πορτοκάλι και ταχίνι με μέλι και κακάο που το βρήκαν στο Y&S Mini Market δίπλα από το Morrison στο Wood Green. Ήταν τόσο νόστιμο που γέμισαν το καλάθι τους και με καλόψητα όσπρια, λουβιά, φρέσκα λαχανικά, ελαιόλαδα σε χαμηλές τιμές δεν μπορούσαν να αντισταθούν στις νηστίσιμες κούπες, στο τυρί για φλαούνες, τα χταπόδια, τα πικάντικα καλαμαράκια, τις παναχόπιτες, τους χειροποίητους χαλβάδες, τις κολοκοτές, τις σικόπιτες, το μείγμα για λουκουμάδες και το γλυκό περγαμόντο. Ήπιαν και μια πινιά λικέρ κανέλα σταντούρα και κρασί σάμου. Y&S. Σε κάνει να θες. Yes, yes, yes!
If you're an EU citizen living in the UK, you will need to apply to the EU Settlement Scheme. The scheme is fully open and you have plenty of time to apply. It is free and all you need is your passport or ID card and to complete an online form. Support is available if you have any questions. To find out more and to apply, visit gov.uk/EU Settlement Scheme. Irish citizens or those with valid indefinite leave don't need to apply.
LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Welcome back. I'm sure you've all had a cafe. Carol, while the listeners have been having their cafe and a little ad break, you have had a text from somebody, yeah?
Yeah, so I was just looking at my phone in the adverts and I have a text from Kelly, who's one of my daughter's best friends. And she just sent me this text to say she's listening and said, I'm genuinely baffled why finance and money management isn't taught in schools. I so needed this. And I just think, and that's just, I think so many people feel exactly the same. I certainly do. And my experience is such.
I tend to think that we're sleepwalking into a financial crisis, even as I say, as we go further and further into a cashless society on a day-by-day basis. You know, I think there is definitely a correlation with mental health issues and pressures of finance, and certainly if we're not preparing people for managing their finances, because finances is two things, isn't it? It's income and expenditure.
Yeah.
So within that, what's the most important?
Well, so I think the main thing is understanding your budget, and I would say from all of that lot, you need to separate what you need from what you want. Now, it's very difficult because the good stuff we ought to spend on the wants, but you need to separate your needs from your wants.
So how do you do that? How do you work out, in simple terms, how do you work out your budget?
You make a list of everything you spent in the last month and everything you're going to spend in the next month.
Okay.
You just make a list of it.
Yeah.
And it can be all sorts of things, student debt, whatever it is. And next to it you say, do I need that? Must I pay that? Or do I want that? And then that's simple. There's my needs, there's my wants. And then you say, how much money have I got coming in? Can I cover my needs? Yes, I can. Perfect. Of the wants, how much can I cover? And if I can cover all of it, bingo, that's great. If you've got any excess, stick some aside. You should put some aside anyway. But if you're in the point where you're saying, actually, I don't cover all of my wants, so I'm going to borrow it from a friend or on a credit card or on a contract or something like that, that's your first clue to you not managing your money straight away.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree totally. I think budgeting is the most important thing, but I think it's about budgeting.
Because you can do this, can't you? You can check your phone every day, can't you? You can check your accounts, your credit card account.
Yeah.
I do that. I check my bank account and see what's going in and going out. I also look after my mum's account and keep an overview on that as well, so I'm checking hers. But I'm constantly looking about what is going in and out and knowing when my finances are, when I've got income that's going to be coming in the next few days or whatever. But I don't think, again, that's something, don't you think, that we ought to be teaching? We're checking our phones, but most of the time young adults are checking them for social media, not for their finances.
But that's because we're in the money, environment. But this is what we do. Whereas a lot of children, a lot of young people aren't. So I think it's more difficult for them. But there are apps out there that they can use. So there's stuff out there that they can do. They should be encouraged to do it, though. Certainly at an early age, they should be encouraged. And I tell you what,
is it encouraged or is it shown, though?
I think demonstrated, but part of what
I'm saying.
But part of what we're talking about with the curriculum and how that should be for schools would be an ability to demonstrate that. So it's not, for me, it isn't just about talking at children. It's about asking them to demonstrate that they've comprehended and that they can articulate that and they can actually do it. And
but that's basic teaching technique,
but understanding. I think in order for people to really do this, they've got to understand the benefits. And if you don't understand the benefits, you're not really going to do it. It's another process.
I think that's where you get into. It's not just about needs and wants, but what would they like to? So we used to call it saving up for. Saving up for a car.
Yeah.
Saving up for my driving lessons. Saving up to leave home. It's leave home, not get a house. Yeah. It's like, well, how are you going to do that?
How are you going to do it? And how long is it going to take?
Exactly.
And how much can you afford to save?
So you put a subject around it rather than we use the words budget because we work in financial services, but to them budget might be they've heard the government talking about it on the news. What does it mean is, as JJ said there, it's income. That's how much I've got coming in. That's what I know I need to pay, and everyone has different needs, but that's what I want to save for. I want that car, or I want that pair of trainers.
But this isn't a nice to have to do this budgeting. It's going to hit them, but it's going to hit them whether they do it or not. Whether they do it or not. If they're not budgeting, they'll get into debt.
But should not everybody do the budget?
Totally,
absolutely, everybody should. And even if you're not struggling, do it anyway, because you can guarantee that when you really do it, and I look at myself sometimes and think, if I actually go down and look at my bank statement, could I cut down on certain things? And there are certain things like utilities and whatever. Am I paying too much? There's so many things that you can cut down on, whether you need to or not.
Sam, coffee's the one, isn't it? How much do you spend on a coffee a day?
Oh, well, you know me.
Well, exactly. But I think a lot of us do spend. Let's say it's £2.50 on a coffee. So sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. But let's say it's £2.50. Yeah. That's around £1,000 a year we're spending on coffee. So straight away, when we look at that and put it into a budget, the reality of how much money we are wasting when you top it up over a year comes out. Now,
and what could that do? That £1,000 that you actually want to do?
What could it do better for you than all those coffees?
Yeah.
Absolutely
or what do you need it to do better for you? Perhaps it's making your money work, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We should make flasks trendy again, shouldn't we?
But if you're spending it, it's coming from somewhere, isn't it? If you're spending it, it's coming from somewhere.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the time it's coming from debt, isn't it? And this is what gets people into trouble. It's really, really easy to just spend. Well, I think, as I say, the society is now that you spend and then worry about how you're going to pay for it after.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was growing up, or in times gone by, shall we say, society certainly 20 years ago was different. That you saw what you wanted, you focused in on it, you worked out the finance, how you were going to get the money, you got the money, and then you paid for it.
So that's really interesting, because I completely agree with you. And one of the things that I saw when I went and did some work at sixth form was we were talking about, so if you wanted to go on a trip in, say, 3 years' time, and it was a really exciting trip and something that you really wanted to do, how would you pay for it? And my concept would be, it's going to cost X, so I need to save this amount of money every month to get there. But actually, the response that I got, well, I'll put it on a credit card. And then I'll spend time. And I was demonstrating to them that if you put that on a credit card, actually the cost of your holiday has now increased. And it's going to be this over a period of time.
This is another thing. I don't believe the youth of today understand what APRs are.
No.
And what's the average APR on a credit card, Jonathan?
Well, I don't know, 19%, 15%.
So 19 to 25%.
So if you're paying £1,000 on a card today, by next year, if you didn't pay any of it back, that's now
25% more.
20%. Well, 1,200.
Yeah.
It's compound interest as well from the following year.
And then you've got the APR on that, and then it just escalates. And I think there's a mentality, well, if I owe that much, what's another £100?
Yeah, but I don't know if it is that, or I just think people don't really understand how finance works. So I'll give you an example of that. Was that Samuel and Co. did some research last summer, and they found that some 87% of the population, adult population, claim they're comfortable managing their own personal finances and are confident of understanding financial vocabulary. However, according to research, only 23% were able to explain what a mortgage or interest rate is.
Yeah.
And there again, I think it lies the issue. If we were given the right kind of education from primary school upwards, by the time they got to 16, 17, 18, they would have a complete understanding of basically putting £1,000 on a credit card becomes 1,200, 1,300, 1,400. And we all know once you get into that field, it's very difficult to bail yourself out of it.
Well, I think you're on it. Yeah, absolutely. But if you can't afford the 1,000 at the start, how can you afford the 1,300 at the end? That's the point. You know, if it was expensive at 1,000, surely it's too expensive at 1,300.
I think there are occasions as well where the young adults actually have experienced those nice holidays to Disney, to far-flung places, and they want to continue to do that, and they don't understand. So I've seen lesson plans where it's saying, well, what is good debt, what's bad debt? Because if you can afford it and you understand the implications, you could go on that really great holiday, but you may not be able to go on another holiday for 4 years.
Because you're still paying for it.
You're still paying for it.
We're going to come on to good debt and bad debt, but we're going to go for a quick break.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Kings Group has been in the high street for nearly 30 years. Agreeing a sale on your property is the easy part. Ensuring it completes and you move is the hard part in today's market. That's why we're here with you every step of the way, and there's no upfront fee. At Kings Group, we are local property experts with a proven track record. Kings have won over 50 Estes Awards for customer service, voted for by you, the public. We have also been awarded the FIFO Gold Service 2018 Award for outstanding service, voted again by our satisfied clients. We are motivated to move you with the minimum fuss in the quickest possible time, while ensuring you are given the personal customer service and advice you deserve. Kings Group, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. Kings Group offer a special discount of 20% to LGR listeners off all our standard fees. Simply mention LGR's Talking Property for further information. Please call on 01707 872 000 or visit www.kings-group.net. Kings Group, you only pay on results, not promises.
LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Hi, welcome back. Time is flying by and there's so much on this subject. We could just stay here all night. Not that you'd want to listen to us. Understanding renting your first home, Sam, if you can't budget, that's surely going to be a problem, isn't it? We're not even getting on to buying your first home. Just renting, just leaving home. Where can you get help? I mean, we've got a text in here actually asking us, it was a little while ago, just about 20 minutes ago, but this sort of fits perfectly into this site. What websites, books or apps can you direct me to for guidance, please, Theo?
Well, brilliant. I actually did some research, Carl, beforehand, and I found a specific guide. It's called The Practical Guide to Housing Through Financial Education. It's available for anybody to download. It's from a young enterprise. It's designed specifically for teachers or financial educators. Anybody can access it, and it talks about all the different types of mortgages, the rates that potentially you could be paying, actually what is a home, and then all about the utilities and the other expenses you would have with running a home, whether it's rented or bought.
We've not even touched on switching your gas and electric. And
absolutely.
They lure you in with there's lots of adverts on television where I think there's one where there's a guy and he dresses up as trying to be a new customer, and they lure you in and then don't give you the best rates after. I mean, that's again something else. And if you don't understand finance, you don't understand keeping a check on your finances, part of that is checking when your rate expires on your gas or electric.
Well, I've done that this week. This week I got an email from Uswitch actually that said your rate's expiring, here's the savings for you. Well, I didn't know my rate was expiring. Fantastic. So there's stuff like that that's there to help.
It's there, but it needs to be taught. It needs to be put in front of people. It needs to get people in a routine. You know, we're trying to teach our young children to eat correctly, not overeat, not become obese, not overdrink. We do all those things, yet something that's equally, if not more in some ways, can have a massive effect on people's health, mental health, is finance, and we're just not doing it. I don't understand it. And I think when you're trying to rent your first home, you need to look at the areas, what you're going to get for your money. What you need to go and research what your deposit you're going to need. You're going to need money not only for the deposit, but chances are you'll probably have to pay a month in advance, if not more. There's lots and lots of things. Once you can find that information, probably ideally a year or so before you're wanting to move out, then you can actually set up a plan and do a budget then for that.
Yes, and I was asking the sixth formers, how much does it cost to heat your home? How much, has anyone got an idea of what the electricity or the utility cost is of your home? They actually haven't got a clue.
No, I should imagine most of them.
I think most adults wouldn't have a clue. Actually, I think a lot of people wouldn't really have a clue.
But a lot of these things,
if you're going to move into a home,
going back to gas and electricity, a lot of these things are systems that you need to get into, and you need to be taught these systems. Now, I personally once a month take my gas and electric readings, and I know from those readings how many units I've used, so I know roughly how much it's cost me because I've got a record of what it's cost me in previous years. And if all of a sudden my gas or electric goes up, i.e. the usage, then I want to know why.
Yeah.
I think some of the providers are introducing these smart meters now, so you can sit there and turn things on in the home and see how much it's impacting upon the costs. So I think that's an educator. I think that's a great opportunity.
Well, there's a huge amount of smart technology going on. I mean, there's loads of really good websites, but not just with running your home, but I mean, there's loads of good stuff you can go to. I mean, there's Money Dashboard's quite a good one, so that links all your various bank accounts together. You can see your savings, you can see what you're worth every month. That's quite a good way of doing it. There's all sorts of budget stuff like Parity, Spending Tracker. There are apps out there, and I would say that young people use apps.
Yeah. And what about any other books or websites that you're aware of, Carol?
Well, I did have a look before I came on here. I did have a look, and there are some very good websites. There were also what I thought was fantastic, some children's books as well to start the ball rolling very early on. And there was one that I found which was called Saving Your Acorns, and I loved the concept of it because it was great, and it's for really young children, and it's about if you save acorns, well, those acorns don't just sit there. They actually sprout and grow into little trees that produce more acorns. And along with the story of this was also about all the animals that save their nuts and put them away because they might need those at a later date. And I thought that was a great concept for young children.
That sounds like exactly the type of book that should be there are lots in the school curriculum.
There are lots and lots of books, and we don't want to bore children with all the details of the stock market and pensions and all the stuff that we all do. We just want to give people the basics of finance and start them young.
Try Save the Student. That's a very good website.
Save the Student.
Save the Student is an excellent website. Okay. It covers a whole range of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Another question coming. How can I find out what my school is teaching my son about financial awareness and what the teacher's qualifications are in the subject? Is there a set curriculum? Well, I think we've probably answered that. Why is this not a main school subject? Well, we're probably not the people to ask that question. It's a very good question, but I think that should be directed at the education department, whatever area it is you're with. No name here. So, how can a parent find out?
Well, I guess the answer is to go and ask the head. What's being taught? Is this part of it? If it's not, why not? Can it be?
Should not all parents be doing that, thinking about it?
Absolutely. I think all parents should.
I think probably most parents haven't thought about it. I've got to say, I didn't really think about this only in the last year, 18 months, when it's sort of kept raising its head. So I think all parents should. It should be a factor. They need to know that, don't you think, Sam?
Absolutely. Parents' evening, go in and ask. That's an easy opportunity to do that. And I think every opportunity, to say primary, secondary, through to college.
Yeah. Well, just turning it the other way around. If you're a school, where can you get help, Carol?
Well, I think there are lots of companies. I mean, my company offers help and will go out.
St James's Place.
St James's Place will offer help, and some of our partners will. This is a very new thing for us, but we will go out and talk to schools at different levels, and we have a corporate responsibility department that have put a huge amount of work into this, and we will go out and talk to schools and start the ball rolling with some training. And we're also starting an initiative at this moment in time which is about train the trainer, so it's allowing our partners to go out and help the teachers so that they'd be able to deliver this as well. But it is quite new, And if we were inundated, we'd probably struggle. But to be honest, I hope we are, so we can actually raise our game and go out there. And I think, just to stress, and I know we all feel the same, this has nothing to do with promoting our businesses at all. I've done it myself, and the students wouldn't have even known where I came from. It purely is about us going out and helping, because we do understand it and we are able to do it.
Do Open Work do anything, Sam?
Well, we're looking at that, and in fact I spent time with the St James's Place corporate social responsibility team, and I've actually observed some of their sessions. So I've seen in practice to think, well, how could we roll that out with the partners within Open Work? And it's great. They've given me some really good insights into, well, actually, it's about knocking on the door of the head teacher. Once you're into the school, you've got an open.
It's got to be a passion, though, isn't it? Because you're sort of giving up your free time, aren't you, Jonathan? Your work time. Time is money, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm delighted to do it. But when you say to the school, "Was that useful? Do you want to come again?" They book you up straight away. They are keen to have you in for that.
I think,
but they don't know we're there.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I just wonder if this subject has massively gone under the radar where the government's concerned. They seem to me they've tipped their hat to it, but it's as if they haven't really grasped how big an issue this is.
I completely agree with you. I don't think they have grasped how big an issue it is, and maybe it's a time that everyone that's listening to this writes to their MP and starts the ball rolling. I'd be very happy to get involved in all of this, because I think it's hugely important.
And our profession can help. This is what we do for a living.
So, in a nutshell, what do you think listeners need to understand about finance? Let's sort of recap it. What the major points?
So I think the major points are to be aware of finance. Get the conversation rolling, get people aware of it. I think they need to understand how to run a budget. How to just be mindful of how to do all of that. They've got to be very savvy with debt. Those are the sorts of things I'd be saying to young people, to anybody really. These are the key parts of it. We're all dealing with money. We've all got to be good at it.
And the youth. One of the things that I'd noticed that there's obviously a massive change when I say going back in time, when we were all at school, which is a fair way. Well, certainly for me, it's a fair time ago. Learning material was given out, and you'd always collect it and take it away with you. It was like a little present. But they don't seem to be as keen, the 16 to 19-year-olds, to take bits of paper, do they?
No, they don't. That was my experience. It's about what have they got on their phone.
And that's got to be built into the system, hasn't it?
Yes. So I think if there are apps out there that can actually emphasise the material that they're being taught, that would be absolutely brilliant. They can look on their app and they on their phone, and they'll know how much sort of data they've got left. Can they look on their phone and look at how much money they've got left in their bank, or even just some interactive, little games to understand how to budget?
My view is there's tons out there. There's tons of material and support. It's not coordinated. That's the point. It's not coordinated.
But that's government's responsibility, isn't it?
Yep.
Definitely, without a doubt. That's the education department's responsibility. I don't understand why no one's spotted this, and no one's, I would have thought there must be some kind of level of feedback going in there from business itself.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so, because it certainly should be. But I agree with you, Sam. I think there needs to be, for students and young people, they do use their phones, so let's not try and change that. Let's encourage it, but there needs to be some interactive apps that they can go in and perhaps put in amounts of money and understand how to budget and move it around.
And those apps
and see
tailored
the impact.
To the age groups,
absolutely
as well.
Tailored.
Because 4 and 5 year olds are using apps these days, it seems. So that there can be little games and things like that involved in that. TV games, whatever they want to say or do. Have you got anything else that you think that would be really good to recommend to the listeners out there that they ought to do?
There's a website that I found called My Bunk, BNK, so it's quite there and current. They've designed materials that they've said have got the wow to really engage the children.
Which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. From primary right through up to university. They're also supporting those young children, adults with hearing and visual difficulties, and also vulnerable children that are at risk of exclusion or may not be a mainstream school. So they've got a lot of material there. So I'd say teachers and parents and actually the young people themselves. Go on there, My Bunk, BNK.
Fantastic. So, coming to wrapping up this evening, listeners, we'd like to hear from you as to what subjects you'd like Talking Property to feature over the coming months. Please text us on 07376611033 or tweet us at LGR Talk Property with your views. Remember, it's your show. So all that remains is to thank my guests this evening, Sam, Jonathan and Carol, for their time and expert opinions. And I'll like to leave you with a quote by Benjamin Franklin, the founding father of the United States. He said, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." We are back Wednesday the 8th of May at the same time. Till then, take care, enjoy life and be good. Ciao for now.
LGR's Talking Property was brought to you in association with the Kings Group, your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property is presented by Karl Knipe and produced by London Greek Radio.